Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Rama Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jai Om Vishnu Pada Paramahamsa, Hare Vajracharya Ashtatara, Patishta A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki, Shri Prabhupada Ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ki, Shri Shri Radha Hari Ki, Nuvarshana Dham Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Gaura Premanandi, all glorious to the assembled, all glorious to the assembled, all glorious to the assembled. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Sri Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Vidaya, Krishna Vistaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Krishna. Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Vicharine, Nirvaste Shastanyavadi Bhakti Pati. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. Are there any events on the calendar today? Vaishnava calendar? Don't think so. Can somebody check? Nothing there. We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 1. What text are we on? 28. I'll just read it through. We may, let's see, we'll quite likely go on to 29 today. Anyasyam apijayayam tayaputra asannutamaskamaso aivata iti manvantaradipataya. In his other wife, Maharaj Priyavrata begot 3 sons named Uttama, Tamasa, and Raivata. All of them later took charge of Manvantara millennium. A short purport by Srila Prabhupada. In every day of Brahma, there are 14 Manvantaras. The duration of one Manvantara, the lifespan of one Manu, is 71 yugas, and each yuga is 4,320,000 years. Almost all the Manus selected to rule the Manvantaras came from the family of Maharaj Priyavrata. 3 of them are particularly mentioned here, namely Uttama, Tamasa, and Raivata. We'll go on to the next verse, text 29. And I won't read the Sanskrit, it's quite long, to say the least. We'll go straight into the English. And it's not on the board, so you have to either look on your mobile or something or try to follow. After Kavi, Mahavira and Savana were completely trained in the Paramahamsa stage of life. Maharaj Priyavrata ruled the universe for 11 Buddhas of years. I don't know if we'll find out what our Buddha is. Let's see. Whenever he was determined to fix his arrow upon his bowstring with his 2 powerful arms, all opponents of the regulated principles of religious life would flee from his presence in fear of the unparalleled prowess which he displayed in ruling the universe. He greatly loved his wife Barhishmati, and with the increase of days, their exchange of nuptial love also increased. By her feminine behavior, as she dressed herself, walked, got up, smiled, laughed, and glanced about, Queen Barhishmati increased his energy. Thus, although he was a great soul, he appeared lost in the feminine conduct of his wife. He behaved with her just like an ordinary man, but actually he was a great soul. Interesting verse. We'll read the purport. Purport. In this verse, the word Dharma Pratipakshaha, opponents of religious principles, refers not to a particular faith, but to Varna Ashram Dharma, the division of society, socially and spiritually, into 4 Varnas, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra, and 4 ashramas, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas. To maintain proper social order and help the citizens gradually progress toward the goal of life, namely spiritual understanding, the principles of Varna Ashram Dharma must be accepted. From this verse, Maharaj Priyavrata appears to have been so strict in maintaining this institution of Varna Ashram Dharma that anyone neglecting it would immediately flee from his presence as soon as the king warned him by fighting or administering like punishment. Indeed, Maharaj Priyavrata would not have to fight, for simply because of his strong determination, they dared not disobey the rules and regulations of Varna Ashram Dharma. It is said that unless human society is regulated by Varna Ashram Dharma, it is no better than a bestial society of cats and dogs. Maharaj Priyavrata, therefore, strictly maintained Varna Ashram Dharma by his extraordinary, unparalleled prowess. To maintain such a life of strict vigilance, one needs encouragement from his wife. In the Varna Ashram Dharma system, certain classes, such as the Brahmins and Sannyasis, do not need encouragement from the opposite sex. Kshatriyas and Grihasthas, however, actually need the encouragement of their wives in order to execute their duties. Indeed, a Grihastha or Kshatriya cannot properly execute his responsibilities without the association of his wife. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu personally admitted that a Grihastha must live with a wife. Kshatriyas were even allowed to have many wives to encourage them in discharging the duties of government. The association of a good wife is necessary in a life of karma and political affairs. To execute his duties properly, therefore, Maharaj Priyavrata took advantage of his good wife, Mahishmati, who was always very expert in pleasing her great husband by properly dressing herself, smiling, and exhibiting her feminine bodily features. Queen Mahishmati always kept Maharaj Priyavrata very encouraged, and thus he executed his governmental duty very properly. In this verse, Eva has twice been used to indicate that Maharaj Priyavrata acted exactly like a hen-pecked husband, and thereby seemed to have lost his sense of human responsibility. Actually, however, he was fully conscious of his position as a spirit soul, although he seemingly behaved like an acquiescent karmic husband. Maharaj Priyavrata thus ruled the universe for 11 arbudas of years. One arbuda consists of, listen to this, one arbuda consists of 100 million years. And Maharaj Priyavrata ruled the universe for 11 such arbudas. 11. Well, 1,100,000,000 years. American standard of billion. Long time. Unimaginable to our experience. Certainly our history would not accommodate such a period of time for a developed human being, very developed, to rule the universe. That's one thing, but the main thing is sometimes we get caught up with, let's say these chronological historical events and facts. Somebody like King Chitraketu having 10 million wives, or here we see ruling the universe for 1 billion years. Almost cannot be accommodated by our limited capacity, and oftentimes people reject the actual essence because of these descriptions. And the essence of this verse, whether in one sense, the practical essence, of course, is the importance of the Varna ashram. Another important essence of this verse is the responsibility of the leaders of society, whether it's somebody on the level of Maharaj Priyavrata or somebody on the level of a governmental leader. In a modern society, so to speak, their first duty is to uphold religious principles. We don't, in some cases, there's a sentiment in this regard. Mostly, nobody understands what real religious principles are. Real religion. We can give an example. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says himself, Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata yutnamadama. That he's appeared to establish religious principles. And thus he's speaking this subject matter to Arjuna. The thrust of those religious principles is ultimately called Sarvadharma Pratyagya. So that says give up all religion. What he's referring to is all the other steps and stones leading to the ultimate goal. But the steps and stones are primarily aimed in terms of practical action, in terms of acting according to one's material Dharma, one's material nature, according to the direction of Scripture. One should act accordingly. And this is basically establishing Varna ashram, and of course there's other angles of Bhagavad Gita, but from the practical point of view, this is one aspect of establishing the first one, practically mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, is to establish the Varna ashram, acting according to one's nature. Arjuna, the whole battlefield of Kurukshetra, and the enticement of Krishna to get Arjuna to fight with him, encouraging him to perform his duty according to his position as a Kshatriya, not try to imitate somebody else. These instructions come up from Krishna: you better perform your own duty, even if imperfectly done, rather than imitate someone else, even if you can do it very well. Because in the course of performing your duty, there are no sinful reactions incurred if it's done in the proper way. Done to Toshna, as we were hearing the other day. The purpose of the Varnashram system is to please Krishna. It's not just to accommodate people's material conditions. But there's two angles here. One is system itself, which is essential for the proper execution or the proper running of human society. But without God consciousness, Prabhupada saying here, without Varnashram, without the actual, even speaking of Daivi, the other day we discussed Daivi, the God-centered system. But even without that, if Varnashram is not the guiding principle in society, Prabhupada saying here it's a society of cats and dogs, which is more or less, of course, we so say have human bodies, but the consciousness, the behavior is just a polished form of the behavior of animals, sophisticated animal life. But it's not really any different in terms of its objectives, or even in terms of behavior in major ways: eating, sleeping, mating, defending, same things going on. Not much difference. Because there's no proper structure in society. Of course, that proper structure in society is material in of itself. Priyavrata, as Prabhupada mentions here, as the verse mentions, he was a great soul, even though he appeared himself to be very much implicated in the ordinary affairs, very powerful ordinary affairs, no doubt, ruling the universe, and very powerful ruler. But nonetheless, material, it appears, very attached to Bharishmati, his wife, first wife. He's a very great example of a chaste and a very faithful and a very supportive wife, who gave him ever-increasing encouragement in the execution of his duties. There's sometimes, so there's another side of things. First of all, his strong insistence on Nirvana Shram, which we'll talk a little bit more, Krishna love, for a while. But the other side is his apparent infatuation. This is nothing uncommon, but being infatuated with the beauty and the behavior of his wife, who made it very much accessible to him. Well, the wife is said to be the better half. She's the other half of the body, at least in this particular case. We may not see it like that, but that's how it was seen. They're like one in two bodies, basically. So as the body, every part of the body has its business to perform for the service of the whole, the queen has an equally important, practically speaking, part in the ruling. She may not be doing the physical aspect of fighting or administrating, but she's the strength. She's behind. Every great man has a great woman who actually gives him that strength and encouragement, even intelligence. So many different things often are found coming from the wife. This form of intelligence maybe that we usually think of, but nonetheless, it's there. That the wife's position, especially the queen's position, is extremely important for the king to be successful, the ruler to be successful. Not the business. In most cases, rare exception of a vanaprastha or a sannyasi or a brahmachari taking this position is the grihasta's role. Grihastas have to perform their duty, to show others also to perform their duty. Even though there appears to be an element of attachment involved here beyond the expectation, he is also teaching others how they should behave. Man should be very much protective of the wife. He should love his wife in that sense, as his great assistant or partner, or whatever word you wish to use, in execution of his prescribed duties. So he's teaching that also. It may not appear to be that. We see this sometimes great devotees of the Lord take unusual positions, apparently material positions for various reasons. Also to show that in any situation of life one can be a great devotee. It's not completely measurable by the externals. We see this in the case of, for instance, what's the name? Pundarik Vijayanidhi in Lord Chaitanya's pastime. You could probably think of many. Even the Pandavas sometimes appear to be somewhat, engaged or whatever in materialistic activities. But Maharaj Pundarik Vijayanidhi, probably a very simple and well-known example. He appeared to, from the material, even great devotees didn't recognize him without a pandit at first, didn't recognize his elevated position. He seemed to be very much a materialistic devotee. No doubt a devotee, but very materialistic. He was very wealthy, and he dressed very opulently, and he behaved what seemed to be in a very kind of a materialistic way. Sometimes this is done for various reasons. In the case of Pundarik Vijayanidhi, was covering over his elevated status, but he wasn't really disturbed. People wouldn't disturb him. At least if he's showing his elevated spiritual condition, it may have been a little different. All kinds of people may have disturbed. But for whatever reason, he was showing. But they also show that in any condition, even Maharaj Yudhisthira, it's said that when Krishna asked him, he was very pleased with Maharaj Yudhisthira, he said, ask from me anything like a Maharaj Yudhisthira asked for wealth. So what is this? Why are you asking me for wealth? Go to the demigods or something for wealth. No, my Lord, I want to show that, that your devotees are not just necessarily poverty-stricken, that you can be in any situation of life, very rich, situated, very wealthy, and still be a pure devotee, or still be surrendered. Claim to be a pure devotee, and still be a devotee. In any situation, we read in the canto in the Bhagavatam, and canto, we read there were prostitutes in Dwarka. They were also considered great devotees of the Lord. They had a particular part to play, you could say, where does that fit into the Varnashram system? Well, every man needs that inspiration, but sometimes that is also required in society. It's not exactly the most elevated methodology by any means, but sometimes that's required in society. Certain persons play those roles for whatever karmic reason. But sometimes it's the request. Just like here in Priyavata's case, we read a few days ago how Lord Brahma is telling him that you should enjoy material sense gratification, at the same time stay in your constitutional position. The Lord wants this of you. He's doing it. There's another side here, because you've been ordered to do it, not just out of, affection or out of attachment or because he gets strength from it. But the Lord has ordered him to do this. He said specifically enjoy sense gratification, but at the same time remain in your constitutional position. Well, this can be seen in different ways, and it can be seen in a negative way also. In other words, we could try to imitate that. But the first part, at least. But the second part is not so easy, is it? Remain in one's constitutional position to actually be with Krishna, so to speak, to feel everything in relationship with Krishna. Religious principles Krishna gives in Bhagavad Gita, I am that. Sex life, according to religious principles, I am that. So according for a Kshatriya, the king, there are different rules than there are for Brahmins, in different directions in Shastra. Every order of life has different direction. The ultimate goal is the same. Basic principle is the same. We follow religious principles. But it's according to the particular position one holds in society. It's not a blanket a directive. The goal is the blanket that comes to here, Hitoshna. And Krishna comes to establish that. He also comes to establish, the proper behavior for different persons in order to life. Because that is necessary. Even if that person, in the case of Priyavati, is already a Paramahamsa, as we heard yesterday. He's already a Paramahamsa whenever you heard. He's already a Paramahamsa. He's already very, very advanced. Realized thought. He doesn't need all this. All this is there, like a king has to accept office. You can't be a king and live. Well, you can, I suppose. Maharaj Bharat did, but on behalf of Lord Ramakrishna. But generally, a king lives in opulence. It's just part of the deal, part of the job. You're not going to drive around in a little tiny Toyota car, for instance. You might do for various reasons, but not in general. Generally, the king will have the most opulent vehicle. It's all part of a necessary relationship with a citizen to evoke within the citizens respect and so on and so forth. But of course, this respect has to be commanded, not demanded. So when the king is actually performing his duty, he not only demands respect, but he commands it automatically because he's actually acting for the welfare of every living entity. Not just humans, but animals, birds, beasts, everybody. That's the king's duty. Kings were very great personalities. They really cared for this. And there's so many examples of that are given. In Bhagavatam also, King Shibi, how elevated he was in his service was material, you could say, but nonetheless it's the duty of the king to act in a way which will help the citizens materially, but specifically to advance in Krishna consciousness. His behavior is known as the most charitable personality. He is willing to give his own body for the sake of a pigeon. Because he saw the pigeon as one of his members of the society. He had to protect the pigeon also. He's also a citizen of the state. We don't think like that now. We think of only so-called human beings. We don't care so much for others. Maybe dogs and cats, but not for others much. Sometimes some sentiment is there, but it's not very well understood. But in general, it's only rules and only protection is primarily for humans. Primarily. But the kings in ancient times, when they were actually qualified, would think for the welfare of all beings, trees, everything. So Maharaj Priyavata was such a great king. And if he found anyone, as the verse and purport indicate, if he found anyone not performing their duty, they better watch out. They better run for their lives or face a fight or surrender. Prabhupada himself says that the king's business, if someone's not doing their duty, they have to point it out. Pretty hard these days. You probably get in trouble if you go overboard in this regard. But yeah, you have to point it out. The king will do whatever is necessary to make sure that there's not adharma, persons acting against the religious principle. For certain persons, certain things are allowed, for others they're not. So if somebody who's not supposed to be taking intoxication, is taking intoxication or something like that, then the king would act very strongly. And he would maybe give them one warning, otherwise probably they would have to fight. Usually the king would have to kill them, because they're acting in such a way that they're causing a blockage in the real purpose of you, causing the death of others. It sounds a bit rough by modern standards, to say the least. But it's because it's based upon spiritual principles. It's based upon the liberation of the soul, not just on accommodating the potential tension of the living entity, but rather helping the living entity to go back to God. So the king had a great duty, great responsibility to uphold those religious principles. Give them one chance, Prabhupada said, and if they didn't agree, off with the head. Doesn't matter who they are. They have to perform their duty. Sinful activity we see in the Bhagavad Gita. And we mentioned maybe the other day, maybe somewhere one of the programs, I don't know. But we see in the 3rd chapter of the Bhagavad Gita when Arjuna asks Krishna, what causes a man to act sinfully even against his own will? And Krishna says, Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajagun Samudra. It's lust only, Arjuna. Lust. And he's not referring to sex or something like that. He's referring, the whole chapter is about performing your duty and what happens when you don't perform your duty according to your nature, guna and karma. And that's what Krishna said. Due to lust, you may not perform your duty, basically. And that is the all-devouring sinful enemy. It was the king's duty to uphold Devana Ashram system, or the leader's duty. It's a God-given system to step by step elevate the living entity. We all know, we heard the other day, again, but we all know that the age we're in, practically speaking, although there's by natural selection, there's obviously leaders, there's obviously teachers, but they're not qualified in the sense of the term, or they may be wrongly situated also. In society, they're thereby automatically there's a hand and a leg and a head and a stomach. You can't really do without it, even if we're misusing it or the person's in the wrong position. They're there anyway. The form is there in some form. The major missing link in this age is Krishna consciousness. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said there's nothing lacking in this world except for Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada himself said everything's already there. The farmers are there, the teachers are there, the managers are there, the people are there. We just have to introduce Krishna consciousness. That's the prime thing. The prime thing. And if there are people who are natural farmers, there are people who are natural administrators, they may be corrupt, they may not be trained, they may not be, whatever, very eligible, but they're there. And they have the idea, the Krishna conscious movement, primarily idea, is to introduce Krishna consciousness into these various sectors of society. Prabhupada very much wanted that the leaders, particularly, they're not easy to approach, they're not easy to convince people, and they're not necessarily really leaders. They're in a position, but they're not actually leaders. So sometimes it's very difficult, always very difficult. But Prabhupada's idea was as a Shrestha, that Yajya Charity Shrestha. That was so good. I forget my verses now. Anyway, whatever a great man does, common men follow in them. He very much wants the Shrestha. That's why he was very happy when George Harrison was showing strong signs of taking up Krishna consciousness. And he did great service as a result of his powerful position in terms of his fame, his talent in music and song, influenced millions of people to this very day, and helped to distribute millions of books. So whatever his behavior was, and his position also, we can't compare it to Priyavata, no way, but in some degree, some way, it's a similar situation. He was obligated because of his circumstance to do things he wouldn't do normally in Krishna consciousness, but his situation more or less demanded it. And that's the case in many positions of responsibility of authority. Srila Prabhupada, when he was in Chennai, what year I don't know, but there was one high court judge, and he wanted to become a disciple of Prabhupada. And it was the same, that Prabhupada is not following the regulated principles. Prabhupada said he's a high court judge. This is an exception. Different situations, Prabhupada was able to ascertain the situation. In many cases, we may not be able to make such discrimination. We're not on the transcendental platform. But they are there. But sometimes persons in very powerful positions, they're great devotees of the Lord. One has to be careful criticizing them for their apparent deviation according to the rules of other orders of life. Even Indra, warnings there that we should criticize, look down on them. It's a very good, famous verse, which I can't remember in the Bhagavatam, which describes that. Those who are powerful, empowered by the Lord, one has to be careful. Of course, they have to be following authority also, spiritual authority. But they may behave in ways which are difficult for others to often have. But we should be careful not criticizing and try to make sure that we're following our duty and acting properly according to our position. To be our responsibility. Anyway, it's you can say a very complex situation, karma, and the whole world, but the primary thing is to focus on Krishna, no matter what happens. The focus should be on Krishna. Always. The leadership, Brahminical Kshatriya leadership should be focused on Krishna and Vidya. That's the real essence of the Varnashram system. Dharmasva Nisitakpunsham Vishvasnanta. Padiyadidiruding Shram Eva Kevam. It's not a society of captive dogs. It must be directed, Dharma must be directed towards the Supreme Personality of God. Worship of the Lord as the primary duty of the king, to establish a society which is geared towards worshiping the personality. It's a topsy-turvy in our Kali Yuga, particularly even in our own society. Not ideal. But the devotees are trying. They're trying their best to chant the holy names, to spread Krishna consciousness, to introduce Krishna consciousness into society, giving that Srila Prabhupada's book, Sadhana, so many different ways, trying to connect people to Krishna consciousness. It takes some time, that's for sure. It takes some time. Purification, for sure. When our consciousness becomes pure, more and more pure, Krishna will work through us, and things will become clear. We try our best to act according to our proclivity, our nature, as best we can, and we chant Hare Krishna. We try to follow basically the rules of ISKCON or Brahminical. It's something which is, maybe, I don't know, who am I to say, but it appears to be a lot to develop yet in this regard. I mean, when Prabhupada was for instance, in Hyderabad, the devotees kind of procured a large tract of land, little festival. But anyway, it appeared like that. Prabhupada's idea there was that, not that we do the farming. He said there are thousands of farmers all around it. You have to engage them in doing it. They're farmers. They know what they're doing. You don't know what you're doing. They know what they're doing. They're farmers. Engage them. Feed them, give them prasadam, bring them into kirtan. And that was it. Just engage them in farming. Maybe some of them would come through, become initiated, but generally that wasn't the purpose. The purpose was to engage them according to their propensity and doing service to Krishna. And that's my understanding of how Prabhupada saw things. The Brahminical head, the principles we have are Brahminical principles. Not that everyone really, and it's a fact, not everyone can follow. Prabhupada said that when in 1976, when discussing Varnashram in Mayapur, that we need this Varnashram for our own devotees, not for the public. What degree that means is another thing. He said even our own devotees, they cannot follow. They cannot get up for Mangalarti. They cannot chant as 16 rounds. Even our own initiated devotees. So, that's another way of looking at things, but Prabhupada had that vision of seeing that the Varnashram is to accommodate everybody, even if they're not chanting 16 rounds, they won't be. That's the Brahminical thing. If others want to do it, or can do it, all the better. It's not necessarily a fact that they have to do that. They're part of the society which is geared towards serving Krishna, and they'll advance nicely like that. So take part just like you have your holy festival next week. Sometimes people criticize these things because we're not Brahmins, but we're thinking we are. We try to impose our failed perspective, our failed attempts on others. They should do it. Spreading Krishna consciousness. Sometimes devotees criticize various techniques to bring people to Krishna consciousness, although they themselves are not doing anything. But if it works, it's the same. Just like holy, we were reading recently an amazing book by Sitala, Hari Story Prabhu's wife on Narottam, Glories of Narottam Das. And after that great festival, the Katuri, the opening festival, during it, after Mother Janava had overseen all the installation of the deities there, bring unity amongst the Vaishnavas, this festival was performed. And when after the installation, she immediately ordered, everyone begin the holy festival. He told everyone to take colors and throw them at each other, every direction. But this pleases the deity, pleases Krishna. It seems like totally mundane, and it might be mundane. But seen in the light of the desire of the deity and the order of Mother Janava, it's not necessarily at all. It isn't mundane. But we may see it mundane because we're mundane. We don't know. Well, we may be mundane, but still, if it's this thing, anything can be seen, even in kirtan. We can have a totally mundane approach to kirtan. We're just thinking of hoping that everyone recognizes me, or, I get my chance to lead the kirtan, or I hope I give me the dunga or something. If they don't, I won't stay, or I feel real disturbed. We may have various mundane perspectives too. Everyone has to some degree. But if the leadership is pure, if we're following the pure process, then gradually that can be purified out. Be cleansed out. We follow the leader. Everyone has to follow a leader. The leader has to be, I was listening to the Prabhupada lecture this morning, and Prabhupada said you can't do without it. Everyone has to have a leader. You may think you can do without it, but you can't. Everyone's following some leader. Some leaders distantly, maybe, like Prabhupada said when he was in Moscow and he was talking to Professor Petovsky. You have your Lenin, we have our Krishna. What is the difference? You follow Lenin, we follow Krishna. Everyone must follow a leader. You can judge for yourself who's the better leader, but everyone has to have a leader. You may say we're independent, but you're following somebody who's telling you that this is how we should be, or a philosophy which they presented. sometimes they present philosophers like, no, it's you don't need to read books. But you're reading their book telling you don't need to read books. So everyone's really following a leader in one sense or another. No one can avoid that. The nature of the conditioned soul, it's the nature of the jiva. He's dependent. Everyone's following somebody somewhere along the line. You have to do that. So if the leader is actually in the right direction, even if you don't know where you're going, the leader knows where you're going, and if you follow him, you're going to go in the right direction. That's the idea, that the leadership is required in society to understand how to encourage people to follow in the right direction. Because this day and age, the propaganda is don't follow. Strong propaganda makes another challenge, you could say. What to do? Chant Hare Krishna. We have to chant and try to, Prabhupada said the purpose, I was listening again to the lecture this morning, Prabhupada was saying, the purpose of this movement is to give people a chance to hear about Krishna. That's the purpose of this movement. Because by hearing about Krishna, gradually we'll become pure. The easiest way to hear about Krishna is to hear the holy name. You need to propagate, because that's something they can a little bit more easy to relate to, no matter what their beliefs or disbeliefs. It's a little bit easier for people to see the joy of dancing and chanting and singing and so on. They can feel there's a potency there that they can feel. And you can see how it catches a lot of people. All kinds, they start smiling, waving, maybe chanting, and maybe joining in and so on. Very attractive, gradual thing. It takes time. We can't measure the effect that's going on, but it certainly takes time. Hopefully not 11 or 1 billion years. Hopefully it's not 11 Arbudas. Hopefully quicker than that, by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. He's made what's very, very difficult in other ages, very slow process. He's made it in this age very accessible for the saints. The ultimate goal, love of God, God consciousness. Sankirtan is the prime benediction to humanity, because it spreads the rays of the benediction, a life of all transcendental. We take shelter of Sankirtan, all the other things gradually, everything else will fall into place. The system and will also fall into place. We give up trying to be the controllers of the universe, give up trying to be the enjoyers of the universe, the proprietors of the universe, and take shelter of the real leader, Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate leader. And the whole idea is the leader is taking us, or bringing us to that point of understanding there is only one leader, Krishna. And that's the whole idea of Varnashram, the idea of human society. Very valuable asset comes to Nandya Patiya Labo Jivetya Vigastya Tattva. This human form of life is not meant for sense gratification. It is only meant for Jivasya Tattva Jignas, inquiry into the nature of the absolute truth. That should be the goal of it. And this movement is supposed to be an educational movement, providing that facility where people can understand that. So a school here is so important. It's so wonderful to see. Obviously, we can look at it from different angles. You can say, oh, it's not really a Gurukul. People criticize. Then do something better with it. You just told us we can't have a Gurukul for other reasons. Now you're criticizing the those who are trying their best to give opportunity to others to become Krishna conscious. It's not our business to go around criticizing. Our business is to try to show something. If you think you can do better, Prabhupada said, then do it. Don't just criticize others without no result. The dogs may bark, the caravan will carry on. Get on with our business. Prove that we know what we're doing and do it. And if we're not doing it right, then be humble. We're here to become humble. We're here to give up our false egos And this Varnashram is one of the, you could say, slow external methods that we put aside our interpretations and try to follow God's given process given by God. So this is surrender, stage of surrender. We all should perform our duties and try not to criticize others, even if we don't understand it, or we don't think it's right. Maybe we can discuss it and whatever else, but we should really try to get on and do what we should do in our lives. And our main business is to spread the holy name. Study Shastra, those who are following the principle of Brahmanical life, try to give the holy name to others. That's what the community is for. The temple particularly, although even here in New Varsham we have some various aspects of farming, maybe not as much as we'd like for various reasons. We have some school, bridge school, you could say, in different ways, but nonetheless, it's a bridge to Krishna. And there's grihastas living here, working personalities, other things may be going on. You've got your public holy festivals, and this and that. All the idea of everything is to bring people towards Krishna. But the primary place, the temple, is specifically, wholly and solely the glorification of the deity. To bring people to whatever they're doing to perform sacrifice for the pleasure. To use their talents, to give their money, to give their time in the service of the deity. To learn how to bow down, to learn how to respect the deities, to understand that it is Krishna himself, and so on and so forth. Not to bring mundane perspectives here. This is where we can cultivate pure devotion. It doesn't matter who we are, what we are. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Okay. Low shot there, any questions? I'm a bit tired. One didn't have a particularly good night. Yes, I've forgotten your good name. Pardon? Madhurya Amrita, what a nectarian name. Dave Amrita Maharaj? Prabhupada. Yeah. 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 The more the merrier. Of course, anyone can follow these four regulative principles, no matter what our position is. In Kali Yuga, it's difficult for anyone to follow. Anyone can, but it's difficult for anyone. Who is a Brahmin in Kali Yuga? Very hard to find. But everything's possible by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya and by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and great devotees. Persons can be elevated and their lives can change. But generally speaking, people are not very Brahminical in sacred Kali. And we may not be very Brahminical, though of course we shouldn't just give up like that, oh, I'm not a Brahmin, I'm a Shudra. I may as well just go out to the pub and have a drink and get into it, and be a real Shudra. That does happen, by the way. But that's not real intention, although circumstances we may sometimes, because of conditioning, Prabhupada talks about accidental fall down also due to past conditioning or environmental pressures, we may sometimes fall. But in general, those who have been purified by chanting the holy name of Krishna by the mercy of the pure devotees, one can be purified by chanting Hare Krishna, even though one's character may be that of Shudra, one can actually be purified in. As we mentioned the other day, even among Shudras, you're going to have persons who are in the order of Shudra life who are actually very, you can say, very pure. And many ways, but their characteristics are naturally inclination to do labor work, and they do need, to be married, and they're not really going to be renunciates in the 10 terms of sannyas, this, that, doesn't matter, but they're devotees of the Lord, and they naturally want to follow, they're attracted to the principle. So there's a mixture there. There's a mixture. Kind of a mixture. Most people have got a mixture. But through chanting the holy name and practice, then one can gradually become stronger. But for the vast majority of the world's population, of course, it'd be great if everyone could be following strictly the principles and following the process of Dharma like that. But it's not expected that the vast majority of persons are necessarily going to do that. But they can all serve Krishna. They can all render service. They can all be a part of the greater society of Krishna consciousness. It's not the International Society of Brahmins. It's Krishna consciousness. So everyone can become, they'll love the devotees, they'll love to give their work, offer their talents to the Lord for the service of the devotees or the Lord himself. They'll love to do that. They'll love it. They won't, they'll do everything they can to assist, sympathize, assist the Krishna consciousness movement. So they're devotees, they may be conditioned, they may have their mixed Prapita Bhaktas, but they're nonetheless, they're following or they're serving, assisting the devotees. And that's Prabhupada's mission, purpose for the life membership program, through the farm communities, through many different ways of engaging, during his time at least, engaging persons who are not necessarily following, but who are assisting in the mission of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, giving donations, giving support. Just for instance, if you have persons in significant positions who appreciate and support us, they can do great service in terms when there's some challenge from higher authorities. They can be great supporters of our movement. They come out in support, and there's many examples of that. Many examples of persons who are not following us, but they appreciate what we're doing. They recognize its value to some degree at least, and they support. They appreciate what the devotees are doing, even though they're not following it, but they appreciate it. So they have their roles to play. So to gradually get everyone, at least, it won't happen, but at least, the Prabhupada said if 1% of the world becomes Krishna, meaning like what you're saying, following the principle of becoming Krishna consciousness, then the whole world will change. It will influence everyone. We're not 1%. What we are, we're a very small percent. Let's see. Yes. Of course, the ultimate goal, the ultimate picture is everyone become a pure devotee. By the grace of the Lord, that's possible, but we're not necessarily, it's not the only thing we're trying to do. In one sense, we have a great duty to facilitate everyone's, at least their beginning of their Krishna, to bring everyone favorable to Krishna. And, that never happens in the material world, but that's the intention. Even when Krishna was present, not everyone was favorable. In fact, Prabhupada said very few people actually really recognize Krishna as the Supreme Person. Very few. They may be, friends, they may be supporters, but they weren't realized souls. But many people were antagonistic. They were against Krishna. Kamsa, Jarasandha, there's so many of them. Duryodhana, Shishupal. They were against this Krishna. We're going to find that. Just acting in such a way that actions are also important. As Brahmin shows Brahminical position by his actions, not by his piece of thread, but by the actions, by how he behaves, how they behave. Every order of life like that, by how we behave. The devotee, Prabhupada says, should be a gentleman. Just by coming, people will be impressed just by the behavior of the devotee. Lord Chaitanya said, you can read it in Chaitanya Charitamrita, the religious principles were established by the behavior of the devotee. By behavior. not by rules, not by regulations, not by designations, but by behavior. That's how religious principles are established. And we try our best to behave. And the primary behavior is to put Krishna in the center, no matter what our conditioning is. But Krishna knows, he knows everything. The famous story of the Brahmin and the cobbler. Cobbler wasn't exactly pure in his behavior, but he was pure in heart because he had his position in society, but he was a devotee. He went back to God despite the shortcomings. Whereas the proud Brahmin had to stay in this material. So Krishna knows our heart. He knows our conditioning. He knows as to whether we're sincere or whether we're duplicitous. He knows that we can't cheat him. Hare Krishna. Anything else? What's your good name? Where are you from? Canada originally, but New Zealand. You're living, or you were born here, or born in Canada. Came here. Very good. Yes. How can we serve you? Citizen? Yeah. We're surrounded by it in many ways, especially now with communication. Social media can be very good, but can also be very challenging in this regards, especially. It's full of very modern society is very quick to find faults in others, but not in oneself. There's a tendency there. My experience there, and try to keep awake and keep going, is interesting point. Well, we know for sure that the propensity to criticize others in the Bhagavad Gita and Nectar Instruction and other places see devoid of the propensity to criticize others. At the same time, we know that there's constructive criticism. That's a different thing. It is seen as criticism, but it's not. It's necessary to point out misbehavior, faults, and so if you're in a position to do so, you have to be in a position to do so. In other words, you're a leader, a parent, a god, a guru, or whatever it may be. Somebody who's actually recognized as a leader, they are in a position to do that. At least they should be. They're actually qualified. That's required for the benefit of the hearer. But in most cases, it's not based upon that. Based on some, and you've mentioned a very interesting point. Aside from chanting Hare Krishna, well, of course, if we could just chant Hare Krishna purely, all these unfavorable propensities would dissolve. But we can't. Well, we can, but we don't. We are not at the position we're doing it, at whatever reason it may be. So I personally have experienced, and I don't know if this is a Shastric statement, it goes along with Varnashram. The Varnashram system is essential in this regard. It's a fact, and at least in my experience, it's a fact, and it's happened in my life. I'll give you one personal example. It's not necessarily directly a Varnashram example, but it's related. In many cases, I had some, although I may not have been verbal about it, but feelings of negativity towards certain devotees. They were, getting recognized or getting all the honor, facilities, and so on. And I thought I was doing the work and this and that, and they're getting all the praise. That's one thing. So, but one thing which happened, probably can cite a few more, was that I found that when I was myself fully engaged in what say, I'll give the example which I'm referring to. About the age of 40 something, I don't know exactly which year, but I suddenly became, in the course of traveling and stuff, I suddenly became involved in dramatic presentation. To such an extent, it became pretty much a regular affair wherever I went, in public, small groups, on stage, big events. It just kind of happened. It wasn't planned. It just kind of evolved. Writing dramas, directing dramas, acting in dramas, and so on and so forth. And nothing professional like the Bhaktivedanta players or Vaikuntha players or Paravida Prabhu, whoever it may be, who are professionals, but it was spontaneous. And it was so reciprocal that my relationship with persons who previously I was really kind of like, if I had the guts to criticize them, I would have done. I was afraid of the reaction almost, that they smash me or something. But now everything changed. And suddenly became, because I wasn't worried about what they were doing anymore. A lot of this is because we're worried about our own situation. We're not actually satisfied with our own situation. Something's missing. We may not know it, but something's missing in our own situation. We may not be rightly situated, or we may not be, whatever it is. Something's missing inside of us. Something's not quite right. We're not right, we're not using our abilities, whatever it may be, something. And when we are more fulfilled in what we're doing, or more rightly situated, all these things become, they don't have any meaning anymore. We just try to encourage others to be rightly situated. There's nothing to criticize. We have to look, we know statements about Siddhanta, my friend. Thoughts in others delude and bewilder you. You kind of like get on their case. Look within, look at your own thoughts. That's another angle, of course. That's not always so easy, which is another aspect. It is Krishna teaching us through others to look at your own self, because of the fact, when we're seeing it like that, that means there's something wrong inside our own perception, something wrong in our own, acceptance or understanding of who I am. We're wrongly situated, we're frustrated. It's hidden it may be. It comes out and covers over by criticizing others, trying to find fault in others, because we're not satisfied within ourselves. And that's the problem. Then it becomes an ever spiraling situation which just goes, never ends practically. It's meant that we look within ourselves. Maybe we meant to look at our own thoughts rather than the thoughts of others. Just again and again and again, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj emphasize this to his followers. There's a couple of things, I don't know if it means anything, but the first one's very practical. I have personal experience on many occasions. But when we're rightly situated ourselves, we just want everyone else to be rightly situated. There's no question of, we see someone else who's, whatever it may be, even if you're right, that, they're being duplicitous or whatever it may be, you feel sorry, and you just want to try to encourage them rather than put them down. Criticism is putting people down. You want to build them up. When we're a little bit built up, then it becomes natural. You want to build others. If we're lacking, then the tendency is, they say that the sieve, you know what the sieve is? You know what a sieve is? One of these things you filter the flour through it. The sieve is criticizing the needle. Hey man, you've got a hole in you. The sieve's got a million holes. Look at that hole. God, look at that. Whoa, look, they got a hole. Pull them down. No, it's to help us to see our own faults. They do or don't. That's another thing. That's their choice. But ours is, Krishna's telling us, maybe you've got a fault in yourself that you need to do. Maybe you're not perfect. Maybe you don't really know what you're doing, or whatever. Maybe you're doing the wrong thing. You shouldn't be seen like. We're not king. We're not the king. Even if we are, we have to be a pure king, or guru, or perfect, whatever it is. We should try to become or try to be, but we're not. We have to be a little careful. Pointing, they say you point one finger at someone else and three pointing towards you. We have to be a little conscious. Try to find ourselves. Try to be satisfied in our own personal life. And it sounds easy. It sounds easy. It's not easy to be. These things do happen in our lives, and they're lessons to learn. We have to be willing to let go. That's humility. Be willing to let go. To be willing to admit I made a mistake. Very hard to be willing to admit I made a mistake. I'm sorry. And to act on that mentality, not just to say it verbally. It's not easy to say it. What does people act on? But that's their business. Bring out a piece in the chain. When we realize how fallen we are, who have we got to criticize? Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj one time, he was on I think it was in Puri with some of his disciples. It's related to your point, it's not directly the same thing, but it's the same principle. Some of his disciples were saying, Guru Maharaj, should we use anger against those who are inimical towards Krishna consciousness? Because we hear this sometimes. Hanuman, Arjuna, they use anger like that. So Bhakti Siddhanta Maharaj said, yes, we should. We should do that. But first we have to understand who is inimical towards Krishna. And he said, when I look at my own heart, I find no one more inimical than me. No one more inimical to Krishna than my own heart. So to whom should I be angry? Self-reflection. Look at our own heart. Not so easy. If we want to advance, we've got to at least contemplate these. Stop blaming others. As long as we're blaming others, we'll never advance. I'm a victim, I'm this, I'm that. Nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. We're here to give up those things and absorb ourselves in putting Krishna in the center and being grateful for the opportunity. And seeing others as instruments to help us to put Krishna rather than opposition or obstacles. Rather, some other Christians allow that this is a great opportunity for me to take shelter. That's what we want in life. We want to try to adjust the institution, or we want to try to adjust our Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Antaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Tomorrow, don't forget, we jumped one verse here on 30 tomorrow. 30. I may not be here.